I'm so glad you found your way here, right now, in oceans that cover more than half our planet's surface. Jellyfish are pulsing through the dark water, some no larger than a fingernail, some trailing tentacles longer than a blue whale. Tonight, you'll discover why one small jellyfish may hold the closest thing to immortality that nature has ever produced, and understand what that quiet mystery means for life itself. Welcome to the Sleepy Safari. Wherever you are right now, perhaps already feeling the weight of the day beginning to lift, allow yourself to settle into this soft curiosity. We'll explore 100 sleepy facts about jellyfish and the extraordinary question of whether anything on Earth can truly escape death. From a jellyfish no bigger than a fingertip pulsing through warm Mediterranean water, to ancient ocean creatures drifting unchanged for 550 million years, to the quiet border between life and beginning again. These quiet journeys through the animal kingdom create a sanctuary for curious, restless minds. A soft like, subscribe, or sharing helps other nature lovers discover this peaceful space and brings us closer to understanding the creatures we share this planet with. One sleepy soul at a time. It means the world to us. And to every pulsing, drifting life in the deep, settle deeper into your pillows now. Let your shoulders drop, your breathing slow and steady. You don't need to remember every jellyfish fact. Just feel that peaceful heaviness spreading through you, like something drifting without effort through still, warm water, weightless, unhurried, safe. Each breath carries you a little deeper into restful calm. Close your eyes and breathe deeply. You're floating where ocean currents carry ancient creatures through the endless dark. Let your mind drift with the quiet pulse of water. And now we begin. The question of immortality has followed human beings for as long as we have been able to ask questions. We painted it onto temple walls, wrote it into every mythology ever invented. And then, in 1988, a marine biology student in the Mediterranean Sea noticed something that made the ancient question feel suddenly, quietly real. A jellyfish, translucent, boneless, smaller than a human pinky nail, appeared to be aging backward, not metaphorically, biologically. The creature known as Turritopsis, dohrnii, was reverting from its adult form back to its earliest juvenile stage and beginning its life cycle again. Scientists would spend decades trying to understand what this meant. Tonight, we explore that question together, gently, one fact at a time, before we can understand what makes one jellyfish so unusual. It helps to understand jellyfish as a group. There are roughly 2,000 known species of jellyfish in the world's oceans, with scientists estimating that many more remain undiscovered in the deep sea. They belong to a group called medusozoans, a branch of the animal family tree so ancient that jellyfish predate dinosaurs by more than 250 million years. They were drifting through Earth's oceans before the first fish evolved, before the first tree grew on land, before complex life as we understand it had fully taken shape. In all that time, the basic jellyfish design has remained almost unchanged. Pulsing bell, trailing tentacles, no spine, no brain, no bones, and yet entirely, quietly alive. The word jellyfish is actually a bit of a scientific misnomer. They are not fish at all. True fish have backbones. Jellyfish belong to the phylum Cnidaria, a group that also includes corals. sea, anemones, and hydras. The jelly part is more accurate. Jellyfish bodies are composed of roughly 95% water, held together by a soft, gelatinous substance called mesoglia. This mesoglia sits sandwiched between two thin layers of cells, an outer layer and an inner layer, making the jellyfish body one of the most structurally simple among all animals. And yet, that simplicity contains extraordinary capability. A creature made almost entirely of water can sting, navigate ocean currents, reproduce, and in at least one case, seem to rewrite the rules of aging entirely. A jellyfish has no brain. This is not a shortcoming. It is a design philosophy millions of years in the making. Instead of a centralized brain, jellyfish possess a nerve net, a loose web of neurons spread across their entire body. This nerve net allows the jellyfish to detect light, gravity, and chemical signals in the water. It can sense when a current changes direction, when prey is near, when a threat approaches. The decisions happen everywhere, at once, rather than in one place. In some ways, scientists find this distributed nervous system fascinating because it challenges assumptions about what intelligence requires. A creature with no brain can still respond, adapt, and survive. Thought, it turns out, may not need a center at all. The life cycle of most jellyfish begins not as the familiar floating bell we recognize, but as something far smaller and stranger. A fertilized egg develops into a tiny larva called a planula, which settles onto a surface and transforms into a polyp, a small, tube-like structure that can persist for months. When conditions are right, the polyp produces stacked discs that detach and become juvenile jellyfish, called ephyrae, which mature into the adult medusa form we recognize. Most jellyfish complete this journey once. Turritopsis dohrnii, it appears, can reverse it entirely, transforming back from adult to polyp stage when stressed or injured, and beginning the whole cycle again. It is a biological loop that has no clear end. The adult jellyfish, the medusa, is the stage most of us picture when we think of jellyfish. A pulsing, translucent bell propelled through water by rhythmic contractions, tentacles trailing below, lined with specialized stinging cells called nematocysts. The medusa exists primarily to reproduce. In most species, it lives only weeks or a few months before dying. It reproduces sexually, releasing eggs and sperm into the water, and then it is gone. Life is brief, purposeful, and complete. What makes Turritopsis dohrnii so biologically unusual is that it does not seem to accept this ending. When it ages, becomes sick, or experiences environmental stress, something in its biology reaches instead for an earlier chapter. The process Turritopsis dohrnii demonstrates is called transdifferentiation, one of the rarest biological processes known to science. Most cells in an animal's body are committed. A muscle cell stays a muscle cell. A nerve cell stays a nerve cell. Transdifferentiation breaks that rule. A mature, specialized cell transforms directly into a different type of cell, without reverting to a neutral stem state first. When Turritopsis dohrnii reverts from adult medusa to juvenile polyp, its cells are doing exactly this, changing identity, rewinding specialization. rebuilding the organism from an earlier template. No other multicellular animal has been confirmed to do this routinely as a survival strategy. As of current research, this jellyfish stands alone in the animal kingdom. The discovery of Turritopsis dohrnii's unusual biology is credited to Christian Sommer, a German marine biology student who was collecting specimens in Rapallo, Italy, in 1988. He noticed that specimens he expected to die were instead reverting to their polyp stage. His observations were initially met with careful scientific scrutiny, as careful science does. It was not until the mid-1990s, when Italian researcher Ferdinando Buero and his colleagues published more detailed studies, that the jellyfish began attracting serious scientific attention. The work was painstaking, culturing these tiny, sensitive animals in a laboratory is delicate work, but the findings held. And slowly, the jellyfish that seemed to age backward moved from curiosity to one of the most studied creatures in biological aging research. Turritopsis dohrnii is remarkably small. The adult bell reaches about 4.5 millimeters across, roughly the size of a small pea. Its body is transparent, pale pink or white, with a bright red stomach visible through the tissue as a cross-shaped structure. Around the bell's edge, tentacles increase in number as the animal matures, reaching 80 to 90 in adults. Despite its size, it is a capable predator of zooplankton and small marine organisms. It is native to the Mediterranean Sea and the coastal waters of Japan, but has spread to oceans worldwide through ballast water in ships. A quiet, accidental journey that has carried one of nature's most unusual animals to waters on every populated coast. The process of reverting from medusa to polyp does not happen instantly. It takes several days and unfolds in stages. The jellyfish first reabsorbs its tentacles. Its bell begins to fold inward. The organism sinks to the sea floor or a nearby surface, contracting and simplifying. Eventually, it resembles not an adult jellyfish, but a small blob of cells, from which polyp tubes begin to grow. The entire reversal from mature adult to new polyp can take approximately 2 to 5 days under laboratory conditions. From that new polyp, juvenile medusae can be produced again, genetically identical to the original animal, but biologically young. The body has not merely survived, it has, in a very real cellular sense, started over. Scientists do not fully understand what triggers the reversal. In laboratory settings, various stressors seem to initiate the process: starvation, injury, disease, sudden temperature change, and aging itself appear to be possible triggers. But the precise molecular signal, the internal switch that tells the cell machinery to begin transdifferentiating, is still being investigated. What researchers do know is that the process is not random. It is regulated. Specific genes are activated. Specific proteins change their expression patterns. The reversal is not cellular chaos. It is, remarkably, an organized biological program, as deliberate in its way as development itself. The jellyfish does not accidentally stumble backward. Something in its biology initiates the return to the beginning. Other species of jellyfish can also revert under stress, but imperfectly, partially, and not with the reliability documented in Turritopsis dohrnii. Some hydrozoans and other cnidarians show limited capacity to regenerate parts of themselves, or to slow their aging under certain conditions. But the complete, full cycle reversal, from reproductively mature adult back to the earliest polyp stage, has been demonstrated most consistently and repeatedly in Turritopsis dohrnii. The species has a relative, Turritopsis rubra, that also shows some reversal capacity. Ongoing research is examining how widespread transdifferentiation might be across the broader jellyfish family tree. Turritopsis dohrnii may be the champion of a category that contains more members than we once thought. Jellyfish have existed on Earth for an estimated 550 million years, making them among the oldest complex animals in the fossil record. Soft-bodied creatures rarely fossilize well. They have no bones, no shells, nothing hard that endures easily in sediment. But exceptional fossil sites have preserved jellyfish body impressions in ancient rock, including specimens found in Utah that date to approximately 505 million years ago. Through 5 mass extinction events that wiped out the majority of species on Earth, jellyfish survived. Through the asteroid impact that ended the dinosaurs, jellyfish kept pulsing through ocean water. Their persistence through deep time is not accidental. It reflects a biological form so adaptable and energy efficient that very little in Earth's history has managed to stop it. Jellyfish are among the most energetically efficient animals alive. A swimming jellyfish uses less energy per unit of body mass than almost any other animal that moves through water. This efficiency comes from the way they propel themselves. By squeezing their bell and expelling water in one direction, they move in the opposite direction, a form of jet propulsion. But more than that, jellyfish also exploit passive mechanical energy in the water column. As their bell relaxes and expands between pulses, it captures energy from the water's own movement, something like coasting on a bicycle after pedaling. This passive energy recovery makes the jellyfish's swimming mechanism one of the most efficient locomotion systems ever studied in biology. In a world where energy is everything, jellyfish found a way to need very little of it. Despite having no eyes in the conventional sense, many jellyfish are surprisingly sensitive to light. Box jellyfish, a more complex group than true jellyfish, have eyes with genuine lenses, corneas, and retinas that detect color and form images. True jellyfish lack these sophisticated eyes, but they possess light-sensitive cells that allow them to distinguish between light and dark, and to orient themselves relative to the sun and sky. Some species migrate vertically in the water column with the rhythm of day and night, rising toward the surface when light increases, sinking into deeper water when it dims. This daily vertical migration is one of the largest regular animal movements on Earth, cycling nutrients through the ocean's layers with every rise and fall. The nematocyst, the stinging cell that lines jellyfish tentacles, is one of the most sophisticated single cells in the animal kingdom. Each nematocyst is a coiled, pressurized capsule containing a hollow, barbed thread. When triggered by chemical signals or physical contact, the thread fires in less than 700 nanoseconds. Among the most rapid cellular events known to biology, the thread can pierce the outer layers of prey, injecting venom that paralyzes or kills. The nematocyst fires only once and is then discarded. The jellyfish continuously produces new ones. Different species produce very different venoms. Some jellyfish stings cause little more than mild irritation in humans, while others, particularly box jellyfish, carry some of the most potent venoms in the animal kingdom. The delivery mechanism however, is the same elegant design across all species. A tiny, perfect, disposable weapon. Box jellyfish deserve their own moment of pause. Though they are technically not true jellyfish, they belong to a separate class called cubozoa. They are the most biologically complex of the jellyfish-like animals. They have cube-shaped bells, highly developed eyes, and a more active swimming style than most jellyfish. The Australian box jellyfish, Chironex fleckeri, is often described as one of the most venomous marine animals on Earth. Its venom can cause cardiac arrest in humans within minutes. And yet box jellyfish also demonstrate notable behavior. They navigate around obstacles, hunt with apparent purpose, and seem to process information in ways more sophisticated than their simple nervous system would suggest. These animals, without a brain, appear to learn from experience in basic ways. What we think intelligence requires, jellyfish continue to quietly challenge. In recent years, jellyfish populations in many parts of the world appear to be expanding. Warmer ocean temperatures, reduced populations of fish that compete with or prey upon jellyfish, and increasing nutrient runoff from coastal areas all seem to be contributing. Jellyfish blooms, large aggregations of jellyfish that can number in the billions, have been clogging fishing nets, blocking the cooling intake pipes of coastal power plants, and overwhelming local marine ecosystems. In 2009, a bloom of mauve stinger jellyfish, Pelagia noctiluca, destroyed an entire fish farm in Ireland overnight, killing more than 100,000 salmon. Scientists are studying whether these expanding populations represent a long-term trend or cyclical variation. What is clear is that jellyfish are highly responsive to ocean change. And as the ocean changes, they are among the first to signal the shift. The immortal jellyfish, as Turritopsis dohrnii has come to be called in popular science writing, is not immortal in an absolute sense. In the wild, it faces the same risks as any small ocean creature: predators, disease, physical damage, unfavorable conditions. A jellyfish eaten by a sea turtle cannot revert. A jellyfish torn apart by a wave cannot reassemble itself. The biological potential for reversal exists, but it does not make the animal invulnerable. What Turritopsis dohrnii possesses is the theoretical capacity to escape aging-related death. Death that comes from the internal wearing down of cells and systems over time. In laboratory conditions where stresses are removed and food is provided, specimens have completed multiple reversal cycles without dying of age. Whether this could continue indefinitely is one of the questions researchers are still carefully working to answer. The genetics underlying Turritopsis dohrnii's reversal capacity have become a major area of research. In 2022, a research team published a comprehensive genomic analysis in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, comparing the immortal jellyfish to a closely related non-reverting species, Turritopsis rubra. They found significant differences in genes associated with DNA repair, stem cell maintenance, and the regulation of cell identity. Specifically, the immortal jellyfish appeared to have expanded and more actively expressed versions of genes that in humans are associated with cellular reprogramming. These are genes that researchers in longevity science know well because they are related to the same pathways investigated in anti-aging therapies. The jellyfish genome is not identical to ours, but the molecular language it uses to rewind its cells contains words that human biology also speaks. One of the central questions in aging science is why cells age at all. One well-studied mechanism involves structures called telomeres, protective caps on the ends of chromosomes, similar to the plastic tips on shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, its telomeres shorten slightly. When they become too short, the cell can no longer divide safely. It enters a state of dormancy called senescence, or it dies. Aging, in part, is the accumulation of senescent cells across the body. An enzyme called telomerase can rebuild telomeres, but in most cells of the adult human body, telomerase activity is very low. Jellyfish biology has prompted researchers to ask whether Turritopsis dohrnii's cells maintain or reset their telomeres during reversal, a question current research is actively exploring. Jellyfish reproduction is surprisingly varied across species. Some reproduce sexually, releasing eggs and sperm into the water column, where fertilization happens at random. Others reproduce asexually. A single polyp can bud off dozens of genetically identical juveniles. Some species do both, shifting between strategies depending on conditions. The Portuguese man, o war, often mistaken for a jellyfish, is actually a colonial organism, a floating community of individuals called zooids, each specialized for a different function. Some zooids sting, some digest food, some reproduce. None of them is an independent animal on its own. Together they form something that behaves like a single creature. The boundary between individual and colony in the jellyfish world is often far more blurred than we expect life's boundaries to be. Some jellyfish, particularly certain species of moon jellyfish, can alter their developmental timeline significantly in response to environmental signals. Cold water slows their development. Warm water accelerates it. Reduced food supply can stall a polyp in its attached stage for extended periods, months or even years, essentially holding the life cycle in a kind of biological pause until conditions improve. This ability to modulate development in response to the environment is called phenotypic plasticity, and jellyfish are among its most practiced exemplars. They do not fight their circumstances. They rearrange their timeline to accommodate them. Organisms that wait patiently for the right conditions tend, as a pattern, to endure. Jellyfish have no dedicated respiratory system. They absorb oxygen directly through their thin, permeable outer tissue by diffusion, the same process by which gas moves from an area of higher concentration to an area of lower concentration. Passively, without effort. Their bodies are thin enough that oxygen can reach every cell this way without any pumping mechanism. They have no heart. They have no blood. Nutrients from digested food move through their simple digestive cavity by diffusion and by the contraction of the bell, which circulates the fluid within their bodies. Everything they need to sustain life happens through the simplest possible physical mechanisms. No redundant systems. Nothing wasted. Nothing more than is required. There is one species of jellyfish, Nomura's jellyfish, nematocysts, that represents the extreme opposite of Turritopsis dohrnii in terms of scale. Where the immortal jellyfish fits on a fingertip, Nomura's jellyfish can reach 6 feet across its bell and weigh up to 440 pounds. These giants patrol the coastal waters of the Sea of Japan, occasionally washing onto beaches in numbers that overwhelm local fishing communities. Their blooms can devastate commercial fishing nets entirely. And yet they are made of the same basic materials as the tiny jellyfish we have been learning about. Mesoglia, nerve nets, nematocysts, a pulsing bell. One fits on a fingernail. Another weighs as much as a large man. Both are, equally and entirely, jellyfish. Take a deep breath and feel this. You're an animal too. A warm-blooded creature, breathing, resting, just like the millions of other animals sharing this planet right now. Somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, a jellyfish the size of a pea appears to be slowly, quietly folding inward. Researchers observing this in the laboratory describe what looks like a release, the adult form gradually simplifying, the cells reorganizing themselves in what biology has shown to be an ordered, directed process, something in its chemistry. Apparently, returning to an earlier pattern. Feel yourself as part of this living world, one organism among countless others, all finding their way to rest. Your body knows these rhythms, the rhythm of breath, the rhythm of waking and sleeping, the rhythm of holding on and letting go. You don't need to hold the day anymore. You can, like that small translucent creature in the dark water. Let it gently go. Now, we continue through the gentle facts of life. The 2022 genomic study of Turritopsis dohrnii identified something researchers found particularly notable. The immortal jellyfish appears to have an unusually high number of functional copies of genes related to DNA repair. In most organisms, DNA repair systems slow down with age. Errors accumulate, go uncorrected, and eventually contribute to the cellular dysfunction we recognize as aging. Turritopsis dohrnii seems to maintain robust DNA repair capacity, even as the organism ages. And during reversal, these repair pathways appear to be highly activated. One emerging hypothesis is that the reversal process itself is partly a DNA maintenance event. The jellyfish is not just changing physical form, but correcting accumulated errors at the cellular level, reverting to youth, maybe. In biological terms, a form of cellular housekeeping. In human aging research, a concept called epigenetic clocks has become one of the most powerful tools for measuring biological age. Epigenetics refers to chemical modifications on the surface of DNA that control whether genes are turned on or off. These patterns change predictably with age, and scientists have developed models that can estimate a person's biological age with surprising accuracy from a blood sample. Researchers studying Turritopsis dohrnii's reversal have found evidence that the jellyfish's epigenetic patterns reset during the reversion process, not randomly, but in an organized, directional way that mirrors the epigenetic signature of a younger organism. This suggests the jellyfish is not merely reshuffling its cells, it is resetting its biological age at a molecular level. The clock is not just being stopped, it is being turned back. The question of what distinguishes a biologically young cell from an old one has occupied researchers for decades. In 2006, Japanese scientist Shinya Yamanaka won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for discovering that mature adult cells could be reprogrammed into a pluripotent state, essentially reset to an earlier, more flexible cellular identity by activating just 4 specific genes. These became known as the Yamanaka factors. They are now a cornerstone of regenerative medicine research. When scientists looked at the genes activated during Turritopsis, dohrnii's reversal, they found significant overlap with the Yamanaka factor pathways. The jellyfish appears to be doing naturally and reliably something that human laboratory science has only recently learned to mimic artificially. The ocean discovered cellular reprogramming long before we did. Jellyfish are not passive creatures carried entirely by current. Though it may sometimes appear that way, many species perform what is called diel vertical migration, moving toward the surface each night and retreating to deeper, cooler water during the day. This vertical migration can cover hundreds of feet twice every day. Moon jellyfish, one of the most common species globally, are known to actively aggregate in areas of higher food concentration, suggesting they can detect and orient toward chemical gradients in the water. Some species have been documented moving against currents to maintain position or reach preferred areas. For creatures with no brain and no conventional eyes, jellyfish exhibit a degree of directed, purposeful movement through their environment that continues to interest researchers. The lion's mane jellyfish, Cyania capillata, holds the record for the longest documented jellyfish. One specimen found washed ashore in Massachusetts Bay in 1870 had a bell measuring 7 feet in diameter and tentacles extending 120 feet. Though that historical measurement cannot be fully verified by modern standards, contemporary specimens in cold Arctic and North Atlantic waters routinely reach bells of 3 to 4 feet, with tentacles extending 60 feet or more. The lion's mane uses its vast tentacle array to create an almost invisible curtain in the water, trapping small fish, shrimp, and other jellyfish that swim into the net. In the dark, cold waters of its habitat, few prey ever see it coming. Some jellyfish are bioluminescent, capable of producing their own light through chemical reactions within their tissues. The crystal jelly, Aquaria victoria, found along the Pacific coast of North America, produces a green fluorescent glow. But the protein responsible for this bioluminescence, green fluorescent protein, or GFP, turned out to be one of the most important scientific tools of the last half-century. Researchers learned they could attach the GFP gene to other genes of interest, making those genes glow visibly under the right conditions. This allowed scientists to watch genes activate in real time inside living cells, a capability that transformed cell biology, neuroscience, cancer research, and developmental biology. In 2008, the discovery and application of GFP earned its researchers the Nobel Prize in Chemistry. A glowing jellyfish quietly changed how we see life's inner workings. Jellyfish have a complex relationship with the ocean's temperature. Most species have preferred temperature ranges and respond to changes that fall outside those ranges. Warmer oceans, driven by climate change, have allowed jellyfish species to expand into new territories, including regions that were previously too cold for them. The spread of Turritopsis dohrnii has been aided in part by warmer temperatures in waters where it was previously rare. As their numbers grow in new habitats, researchers are asking whether the spread of a potentially biologically immortal species into new ecosystems has any measurable ecological consequences. The question is theoretical at present. Populations are still managed by predation and natural mortality in the wild, but it adds a layer of ecological interest to what is already a remarkable biological story. In the deep ocean, below about 3,000 feet, where sunlight never reaches. Jellyfish and jellyfish-like creatures become major components of the ecosystem. Some deep-sea species, like the helmet jellyfish, periphylla, can reach impressive sizes and live for decades in the cold and dark. Others, like the giant phantom jelly, Stygiomedusa gigantea, are rarely seen by human eyes. Around 100 documented sightings exist across all of recorded marine biology. Despite the animal reaching bell diameters of over 3 feet and trailing ribbon-like arms up to 30 feet, in 2021, researchers operating a remotely operated vehicle off the Monterey Canyon in California captured high-resolution video footage of a giant phantom jelly at depth. One of the clearest recordings ever made of this mysterious deep-water giant. Jellyfish play a role in what oceanographers call the biological pump, the process by which carbon captured by surface phytoplankton eventually sinks to the deep ocean floor. When jellyfish bloom in enormous numbers and then die, their bodies sink rapidly, carrying organic carbon from the surface world into the deep in what is called a jellyfish fall. This carbon can be locked away in deep-sea sediments for centuries or longer, effectively removing it from the active carbon cycle. The scale of this process is still being quantified, but emerging research suggests jellyfish falls may be a significant and underappreciated component of the ocean's carbon storage system. The creatures we might overlook as simple drifters may be quietly performing one of the ocean's most important environmental functions. The upside-down jellyfish, Cassiopeia, has developed an unusual lifestyle that sets it apart from most of its relatives. Instead of pulsing through open water, it lies bell down on shallow, sandy seafloor in warm tropical waters, tentacles pointing upward toward the light. Its tissues contain photosynthetic algae called zooanthellae, the same symbiotic organisms that live inside coral. These algae convert sunlight into sugars that supplement the jellyfish's diet. So the upside-down jellyfish is simultaneously an animal and a living solar collector, hosting a photosynthetic organism inside its own tissues to capture energy from the sun. It still stings. And notably, it releases tiny stinging particles into the surrounding water, which can affect swimmers who never touch the jellyfish directly and find themselves itching in apparently empty, shallow water. The relationship between jellyfish and their environment has been studied intensively through acoustic tracking. Researchers have deployed hydrophone arrays and sonar systems to track jellyfish movements over days and weeks. What these studies have revealed is that jellyfish aggregations are often far more structured than random drift would produce. They tend to accumulate at thermal fronts, the boundaries between water masses of different temperatures, where food concentrations are often highest. They pulse in coordinated rhythms when in groups. They respond to acoustic signals from the ocean floor. Whether this coordination reflects simple physical responses to gradients or something more organizationally nuanced remains a genuinely open question. The jellyfish continues to be more difficult to fully explain than a simple, brainless drifter might be expected to be. Jellyfish are important prey for several species we tend to value highly. Leatherback sea turtles, the largest living reptiles, feed almost exclusively on jellyfish, consuming hundreds of pounds per day during feeding seasons. Sunfish, or mola, also consume large quantities of jellyfish and are found in productive, jellyfish-rich waters worldwide. Various seabirds, tuna, and sharks consume jellyfish opportunistically. In the Pacific Northwest of North America, researchers have documented salmon feeding on jellyfish, a behavior once considered rare, but now recognized as more common than previously thought, particularly during seasons of jellyfish abundance. Even humans eat jellyfish. In parts of East and Southeast Asia, several species are harvested, processed, and consumed as a traditional food, salted, dried, and served in salads or soups. In scientific imagination, stated here as reflective thought, not established fact, the idea of a biologically immortal organism raises questions that go well beyond biology. If an organism can reset its cellular age indefinitely, what does individuality mean over time? Is the jellyfish that emerges from a second polyp the same individual that began the first life cycle? Or a descendant? Is the resetting of biological age a continuation of the same life, or the beginning of a new one? These are philosophical questions as much as scientific ones, and biology does not yet have the tools to answer them definitively. What the jellyfish offers is not an answer, but a beautifully precise question, posed in the language of cells and ocean water rather than words. The moon jellyfish, Aurelia aurita, is perhaps the most widespread jellyfish species on Earth, found in coastal waters on every populated continent except Antarctica. Its translucent bell, typically between 5 and 15 inches across, is recognizable by 4 violet or purple horseshoe-shaped gonads visible through the tissue at its center. Moon jellyfish are remarkably tolerant of environmental variation. They survive in waters ranging from near freezing to around 31 degrees Celsius. In salinities, from nearly fresh water to very salty ocean water. They reproduce prolifically and adapt readily to disturbed ocean conditions. In laboratory settings, moon jellyfish, deprived of food, have been documented, reabsorbing and regenerating their bells repeatedly. A limited form of biological reorganization that speaks to a general cnidarian flexibility. Turritopsis dohrnii has taken that flexibility to its farthest documented extreme. The study of aging, gerontology, has been transformed in the last 2 decades by discoveries in molecular biology. Researchers now understand aging not as a single process, but as a collection of interconnected mechanisms. Telomere shortening, epigenetic drift, mitochondrial dysfunction, cellular senescence, loss of stem cell activity, and chronic low-grade inflammation, among others. The hallmarks of aging, a framework first published in 2013 and updated in 2023 to include additional mechanisms, provides a map of these processes. Turritopsis dohrnii appears to engage with several of these hallmarks during its reversal, resetting epigenetic patterns, maintaining DNA repair, activating stem cell-like states. No single animal has ever been described as addressing all aging hallmarks simultaneously. Whether the immortal jellyfish comes close remains a question at the edge of current biological research. You're still here, still drifting through these quiet ocean facts in the dark. Take a slow breath. Notice how your body feels a little softer now, a little heavier, a little more like something at rest in still water. We're discovering the secrets of jellyfish together. You and I and everyone listening tonight. There's no rush, no test at the end. Just the gentle pleasure of learning something beautiful before sleep finds you. Let's continue. the mechanics of Turritopsis dohrnii's reversal at the cellular level are still being resolved. What is established is that differentiated cells that have committed to specific roles, actively change their identity during the process. A muscle cell in the bell can become a nerve cell. A digestive lining cell can become a structural cell. In most animals, uncontrolled cell identity change is associated with disease. In Turritopsis dohrnii, the process is controlled, directional, and reproducible. Researchers have identified that this regulation involves changes in chromatin structure, the physical organization of DNA, which makes previously silenced developmental genes accessible again. In parallel, genes responsible for maintaining the adult form are gradually quieted. The cell is not erased randomly. It is, very slowly, rewritten. In order to change identity, a cell must essentially erase its current programming and write a new one. This involves profound changes in gene expression, which genes are turned on and which are turned off, as well as changes in the epigenetic marks that maintain those expression patterns. Researchers studying the reversal process in Turritopsis dohrnii have found evidence of chromatin remodeling, a process by which the physical structure of DNA is reorganized, making previously silenced genes accessible again. During reversal, genes associated with embryonic development and stem cell activity become active once more. While the genes that maintained the adult form are quieted, the cell's identity is not erased randomly. It is carefully, systematically rewritten, from adult back to something that reads molecularly, like the beginning. One of the key questions is whether Turritopsis dohrnii is truly biologically immortal or merely very long-lived with an unusual survival strategy. The distinction matters. True biological immortality would require not just the ability to revert, but the continued functionality of all biological systems across unlimited cycles. What has been confirmed is multiple complete cycles in laboratory settings, with researcher Shin Kubota at the Seto Marine Biological Laboratory documenting individual specimens, completing up to a dozen or more full reversals over years of careful observation. Whether each subsequent cycle proceeds as cleanly as the first, whether any errors accumulate across reversals or are fully corrected each time, remains a genuinely open and important question. The jellyfish has demonstrated the capacity. The outer limit of that capacity, if one exists, is still unknown. The role of stem cells in Turritopsis dohrnii's reversal is a particularly active area of investigation. In typical animals, stem cells are a reservoir of undifferentiated cells that can produce new specialized cells throughout life. They are the body's ongoing maintenance and repair system. As animals age, stem cell populations decline in number and functionality. One of the recognized hallmarks of aging is the exhaustion of these stem cell reserves. Turritopsis dohrnii's reversal may involve the regeneration or replenishment of its stem cell equivalent populations, restoring the reservoir that most animals gradually deplete. If this is the case, then the jellyfish's capacity is not just transdifferentiation but the rejuvenation of the very ability for cellular renewal. Not just resetting the clock, but restoring the mechanism that runs it. Japanese biologist Shin Kubota has spent decades studying Turritopsis dohrnii at the Seto Marine Biological Laboratory in Shirahama, Japan. He is widely considered one of the world's leading experts on the animal's behavior in laboratory conditions. Kubota has successfully maintained colonies of the immortal jellyfish for years and has documented multiple reversal cycles in individual specimens. He has noted that the animals seem to revert most reliably when exposed to specific stressors, with starvation being among the most effective triggers in his experience. Kubota is also known for having written and performed original songs about the jellyfish, which he considers a source of personal inspiration. His decades of patient, careful observation have provided much of the foundational behavioral data that molecular researchers now build upon. Coral reefs, one of the richest ecosystems on Earth, depend in part on organisms related to jellyfish. Corals are cnidarians, part of the same ancient animal group. They build their calcium carbonate skeletons over centuries, providing structure for ecosystems that house perhaps 25% of all marine species. The relationship between reef corals and the photosynthetic algae living inside them, the zooxanthellae, mirrors the relationship Cassiopeia jellyfish maintain with similar algae in their own tissues. When ocean temperatures rise beyond coral tolerance, this partnership breaks down. The coral expels its algae, turns white, and may die. This process, called coral bleaching, is accelerating globally. Understanding how cnidarians manage their algal partnerships under stress and what allows some to maintain them while others fail is one of the more pressing questions in current ocean science. The nervous system of jellyfish, despite its simplicity, is currently under scientific scrutiny because it may help answer a foundational question. What is the minimum structure required for behavior? A jellyfish's nerve net lacks a brain, a spinal cord, and anything resembling centralized processing. And yet jellyfish exhibit coordinated locomotion, prey detection, avoidance behavior, and in box jellyfish, what appears to be learning. Researchers studying cnidarian neuroscience have found that the nerve net is not simply a diffuse, unstructured web, but contains organized circuits, local processing units that handle specific inputs and produce specific outputs. This distributed architecture may be one of the oldest forms of nervous system organization on Earth, and understanding it could illuminate how centralized brains evolved from simpler beginnings. Jellyfish have inspired engineering in ways that extend well beyond their biological chemistry. The pulsing locomotion of jellyfish bells has been studied extensively by engineers designing underwater robots. A jellyfish-inspired robot can move efficiently through water using a fraction of the energy required by propeller-driven systems. And it can change direction, ascend, and descend without complex mechanical joints. Several research groups have built working jellyfish robots ranging from palm-sized models to human-sized autonomous vehicles designed for ocean monitoring. In 2023, researchers published work on a soft, robotic jellyfish capable of operating effectively in deep ocean pressure conditions, potentially enabling monitoring missions in environments too harsh for conventional underwater vehicles. The jellyfish has been refining underwater movement for 500 million years. Engineers are slowly catching up. There is ongoing research into whether the mechanisms Turritopsis dohrnii uses for cellular reversal could be applied in any way to human medicine. The honest answer from researchers in the field is not directly, not yet, and possibly not ever in simple translation. Human bodies are vastly more complex than jellyfish. Our developmental programs are different. our immune systems would respond cautiously to many forms of cellular reprogramming. And the scale of the intervention required is far beyond anything currently achievable. But the value of studying the jellyfish is not in hoping to become jellyfish. It is in understanding the molecular language of cellular identity well enough that we might, eventually, support healthy function in specific tissues, not through wholesale reversal, but through carefully targeted interventions inspired by what this small ocean animal has quietly understood for millions of years. The jellyfish is not a solution. It is a language lesson. If we step back from the biochemistry and simply observe, Turritopsis, dohrnii, does something that no story, no myth, and no human ambition has ever fully managed. It actually turns back time in its own body, not as a metaphor, not as poetry, as a measurable, repeatable, biological event. A creature smaller than a pea, in an ocean covering 70% of our planet, appears to have found a way to answer the question that has followed human consciousness since the first human being understood that life ends. And it found that answer not by growing more complex, or fighting harder, or developing greater strength. It found it by simplifying, by releasing the adult form without resistance, by returning, quietly, to the beginning. That may be the most interesting thing in this entire story. And we are still, slowly, learning to read it. Halfway through our journey, breathe slowly and imagine this. You're floating in the warm, shallow waters of the Mediterranean Sea. The water is clear and blue-green, lit from above by afternoon light that ripples across the sandy floor. A few feet away, a jellyfish the size of a small coin pulses gently through the water, translucent, pink-white, almost invisible. It moves without urgency, without destination, simply pulsing, drifting, existing. There is no threat near it right now, no storm, no current pulling it somewhere unwanted, just open water, warmth, and the slow, patient rhythm of the bell opening and closing. Notice how your own breathing has begun to match that rhythm. Open, close, open, close. The water holds the jellyfish. The bed holds you, both of us here, in different kinds of water, in different kinds of quiet. Everything is exactly as it should be. We're halfway home. The rest of the journey is all ease. Let's continue. The ocean is the original home of all complex life on Earth. For the first 3.5 billion years of life's history on this planet, everything that lived in the sea. Land was colonized only in the last 500 million years or so. Relatively recently, in geological terms, jellyfish never left. They remained in the medium that produced them, never developing the adaptations required for air, for gravity, for dryness. In a sense, jellyfish are the original form. The ocean's oldest ongoing experiment in complex animal life. When we study them, we are, in some small and indirect way, studying ourselves as we were before we had bones or brains, or the desire to ask questions about whether things can live forever. The ocean covers 335 million cubic miles of volume, and jellyfish inhabit virtually all of it. From the sunlit surface to the crushing dark of the Hadal zone, more than 6 miles below sea level. They have been found in the Arctic Ocean under sea ice, in brackish estuaries, and in the open expanse of the pelagic zone thousands of miles from any coast. No other macroscopic animal group occupies a comparable range of the ocean's volume. Their tolerance for environmental extremes is partly a function of their simple body plan. With so few specialized systems, there is less that can fail under harsh conditions. Simplicity, it turns out, is its own form of resilience. As research into Turritopsis dohrnii has grown, so has interest in other potentially long-lived ocean animals. The ocean quahog clam, Arctica elandica, can live for more than 500 years. The oldest confirmed individual reached 507 years of age. The Greenland shark, Somniosus microcephalus, reaches sexual maturity around the age of 150 and may live for more than 400 years. The bowhead whale can live over 200 years. These animals are not biologically immortal. They do age, eventually, and they do die. But they age far more slowly than most animals of comparable size. Studying their biology alongside that of Turritopsis dohrnii is helping researchers build a comparative picture of the molecular features that the slowest aging animals tend to share. In recent years, comparative studies of the naked mole rat's biology have added new detail to the picture of aging. Naked mole rats live up to 37 years, roughly 10 times longer than similarly sized mice, and show very little increase in mortality rate as they age, a property called negligible senescence. They almost never develop cancer. Their cells maintain protein quality control to a notable degree. When researchers compared the naked mole rat's longevity-associated genes with those of Turritopsis dohrnii, they found convergent evolution at work. Different animals, on entirely different branches of the tree of life, had independently arrived at some of the same molecular approaches for extending healthy lifespan. Evolution appears to have found similar answers to the aging problem more than once. For jellyfish, time works differently than it does for most animals we know. A Turritopsis dohrnii that has completed 3 life cycles carries no visible sign of its age. Its bell shows no weathering. Its tentacles show no fraying. A biologist, examining it under a microscope, would see a young organism because in every measurable biological sense, it is. This creates a quiet conceptual challenge. What does the word old mean for a creature that can reset its biological age? What does age mean for an animal that measures not in years but in cycles that may have no necessary end? The jellyfish does not answer these questions. It simply pulses, unhurried, through water that has always been its home, and leaves the philosophy to us. Jellyfish have been studied in space. Because their body orientation and gravitational sensing rely on calcium sulfate crystals called statoliths, tiny weighted structures that tell the jellyfish which direction is down. They provide a model system for studying how gravity affects development. NASA sent moon jellyfish polyps to the International Space Station on a space shuttle mission in 1991, where they were allowed to develop and reproduce in microgravity. The resulting medusae showed altered pulsing patterns when returned to Earth. They appeared to have developed without a proper gravitational reference frame and had difficulty orienting normally. The experiment raised questions about how gravity shapes animal development and sensory systems during early life stages. Jellyfish served as a small, elegant window into a much larger question. The spread of Turritopsis dohrnii through ballast water in ships has been described by some researchers as one of the most gradual biological redistributions in ocean history. Ships take on ballast water in one port and release it in another, carrying whatever organisms were in that water, including the tiny polyps and juvenile medusae of the immortal jellyfish. The species has now been identified in Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Ocean waters, well outside its original Mediterranean and Japanese range. In most cases, its ecological impact appears to be limited. It is small. It is prey to larger animals, and its populations in new waters are held in check by predation and competition. But researchers continue to monitor its spread, particularly as warming oceans may increase its survival in previously inhospitable regions. The transparency of jellyfish is not simply an aesthetic quality. It is a functional one. In open water, where there is nowhere to hide, transparency is one of the most effective forms of camouflage available. A jellyfish whose tissues are nearly invisible in the water column is very difficult for visual predators to detect until it is very close. Their translucency comes from the high water content of their mesoglia and from the arrangement of their cells, which scatter light in ways that minimize contrast with the surrounding water. Some deep-sea jellyfish incorporate red pigmentation that absorbs the faint blue light filtering down from the surface, making them effectively invisible at depth. In the open ocean, the most effective hiding place is not behind something. It is inside the light itself. Scientists have been investigating whether compounds in jellyfish venom might have medical applications. Some cnidarian toxins are already being studied for potential use in pain management, cancer treatment, and antibiotic research. The venom of the box jellyfish, Chironix fleckeri, has been analyzed extensively, and while its effects on humans are well documented, components of it have shown interesting activity against certain cancer cell lines in laboratory testing. Other jellyfish-derived compounds have been examined for antibacterial and antifungal properties. None of these have yet translated into approved therapeutic applications. But the chemical library of the ocean, of which jellyfish venom represents a significant and largely unexplored portion, is considered a promising area in natural product pharmacology. The ocean's most carefully avoided animals may also carry some of its most medically interesting chemistry. The question of how many times Turritopsis dohrnii can revert is one researcher's approach with care. In popular accounts, the jellyfish is often described as capable of reverting indefinitely. The scientific literature is more measured. Laboratory studies have confirmed multiple complete reversals in individual specimens, with some researchers documenting a dozen or more full life cycle completions under sustained observation. Whether this could continue without limit remains unconfirmed. It would require maintaining a specimen through dozens or hundreds of cycles under controlled conditions over very long periods. The most honest position in current research is that Turritopsis dohrnii has demonstrated a practical capacity to escape age-related death through repeated reversal. But whether that capacity has an outer limit has not yet been determined. It may be unlimited. That possibility remains open. Ocean acidification, caused by the absorption of atmospheric carbon dioxide into seawater, is changing the chemistry of the marine environment in ways that affect cnidarians in complex ways. More acidic water interferes with the calcium carbonate structures that corals build, threatening reef ecosystems globally. For jellyfish themselves, the evidence is more mixed. Some species appear relatively tolerant of increased ocean acidity, at least within the ranges projected for the coming century. Others show reduced reproductive success under acidified conditions. The overall effect of ocean acidification on jellyfish populations globally is still being studied. What is clear is that the ocean is changing chemically faster than at any point in the last 50 million years. And the animals that thrive in the new ocean may not be the same ones that thrive today. Jellyfish, sleep. This was not confirmed until 2017, when researchers at the California Institute of Technology published a study in the journal Current Biology demonstrating sleep-like behavior in the upside-down jellyfish. Cassiopeia. The jellyfish pulsed more slowly at night, by roughly 1/3, than during the day. When disturbed during their quiet period, they were slower to respond than when active, a trait called sleep inertia that is also characteristic of waking from sleep in other animals. When researchers deprived the jellyfish of their rest period, the animals showed increased sleep-like behavior the following day, a rebound consistent with sleep debt. Cassiopeia has no brain, and yet it shows the behavioral hallmarks of sleep. The research suggested that sleep may not require a centralized nervous system. It may be a fundamental property of nervous tissue itself. The idea that sleep is evolutionarily ancient, shared by animals as simple as jellyfish, has quietly reshaped how sleep researchers think about the function of sleep itself. If an animal with no brain and no centralized information processing still needs to sleep, then sleep cannot be primarily about processing memories or consolidating information. Functions that require complex neural architecture, sleep, in these simple animals, must be serving a more basic function, perhaps cellular maintenance, waste clearance at the tissue level, or restoration of molecular machinery. In humans, the brain's glymphatic system clears metabolic waste most efficiently during sleep. But even in simple animals without such a system, rest appears to serve an analogous role at a basic cellular level. Sleep, the evidence suggests, is what living tissue does when it needs to restore itself. There are jellyfish that persist in a different sense. They form colonies that continue long after any individual member has gone. The siphonophore Praedubia, a colonial cnidarian related to jellyfish, can reach 150 feet in length, making it among the longest animals on Earth. Its body is a chain of specialized individuals called zooids, each performing a different function, no one of which is the whole animal alone. Some zooids propel the colony, some catch prey, some reproduce, some provide structural support. Praedubia as a single organism, if that concept even applies, may live for only a limited time. But the colonial architecture it represents suggests another kind of continuity. Not one body living forever, but a collective living longer than any of its parts. Jellyfish blooms can alter the chemistry of the surrounding water. When jellyfish are present in large numbers, their excretion of ammonia and organic compounds adds significantly to local nutrient concentrations. When they die and decompose, this nutrient pulse can trigger phytoplankton blooms in the surrounding water. These blooms can in turn create low oxygen zones as the phytoplankton decompose and bacterial activity consumes dissolved oxygen. The ecological consequences of large jellyfish blooms therefore ripple outward through the chemistry of the water, affecting organisms that may have no direct contact with the jellyfish at all. In a connected ocean, everything influences everything else, sometimes in chains of consequence that stretch very far from the original event. The venom of sea anemones, sea cnidarians closely related to jellyfish, has been more extensively studied in some contexts, partly because anemones are easier to maintain in laboratories. one compound derived from sea anemone venom, shea toxin, is being investigated as a treatment for autoimmune diseases, including multiple sclerosis. The compound targets specific ion channels in immune cells, modulating immune activity without broad immunosuppression. Clinical research using a synthetic version of this compound has been conducted. While the work is ongoing and has not yet produced an approved drug, it represents a clear example of cnidarian chemistry finding its way toward human medicine, and suggests that the broader chemical library of the jellyfish group may contain additional medically interesting molecules waiting to be discovered. There is a parallel, offered here as personal reflection, not scientific claim, between how Turritopsis dohrnii appears to respond to stress and something in contemplative thought. Release the current form. Return to an earlier simplicity. Allow the cycle to begin again. When conditions become unsurvivable in its adult state, the jellyfish does not appear to resist the change. It releases. And in releasing, it finds continuation. Whether that pattern contains anything instructive for human beings is a matter for each person's own quiet consideration. It is a genuinely beautiful thing to reflect on in the soft moments before sleep, that sometimes what continues is not the one who held on, but the one who gently let go. As of 2025, genomic research on Turritopsis dohrnii continues to accelerate. Advances in long-read DNA sequencing technology have allowed researchers to map the jellyfish's genome with greater accuracy than was possible in earlier studies. Comparative genomics. Comparing the immortal jellyfish's genome not just to its non-reverting relatives, but to a wider range of animals, including humans, is yielding a more detailed picture of which genes are shared, which are unique, and which show the specific modifications associated with reversal capacity. Several research groups in Europe, Japan, and North America are currently working on aspects of this question. The field is young. The jellyfish has been patient for 550 million years. It can wait a little longer for us to catch up. The way jellyfish experience the ocean is entirely different from the way most animals we know engage their environment. They navigate by gradient, following chemical concentration, orienting to light, sensing gravity through tiny weighted crystals. There is no internal spatial map, no stored memory of where they have been, no plan for where they are going. Their world is continuous. Present sensation. In human terms, this might seem narrow. In evolutionary terms, it is a design unchanged for 500 million years. Whatever the jellyfish experiences, if it experiences anything at all, it is clearly, entirely sufficient for a kind of life that has outlasted nearly everything else. The medical research implications of Turritopsis dohrnii's biology extend particularly into the field of regenerative medicine, the science of repairing or replacing damaged tissues and organs. Current regenerative medicine approaches include stem cell therapy, organoid technology, and laboratory-grown tissue engineering. All of these approaches require a deep understanding of how cells differentiate, de-differentiate, and change identity. Precisely the processes that Turritopsis dohrnii performs so naturally. Researchers in regenerative medicine cite the jellyfish as a model organism for understanding the outer limits of cellular plasticity. How far a cell's identity can be reshaped, under what conditions, and at what biological cost. The jellyfish is not a treatment, but it is a proof of concept. Cellular identity is not as fixed as we once believed. Jellyfish are among the animals most affected by light pollution from coastal development. Many species orient and navigate using natural light gradients, the pattern of sky brightness that tells them which way is up, where the surface is, and how the time of day is changing. Artificial light from coastal cities disrupts these gradients, causing behavioral changes in jellyfish and other marine animals. Some species aggregate near artificial light sources rather than following natural patterns. This can concentrate them near coastal infrastructure, increasing the frequency of jellyfish encounters with swimmers, fishing equipment, and power plant intakes. Light pollution, typically discussed in the context of its effects on birds and sea turtles, is increasingly recognized as a meaningful source of disruption for the marine animals closest to our coastlines. The philosopher and biologist Andreas Wagner has written about biological evolution as an exploration of an essentially vast space of possible forms, what he calls the library of life. In this framing, every organism alive today is one arrangement in an almost unimaginably large collection, each one a different approach to the challenge of existing in the world. The immortal jellyfish represents an approach most of the collection does not contain, the approach of reversibility. Most evolutionary lineages have moved in one direction, toward greater complexity, greater specialization, greater commitment to a fixed form. Turritopsis dohrnii found a different page, one that reads, "You can always return to the beginning." It is one of the rarest arrangements in the collection, and one of the most quietly interesting. The role of jellyfish as food for other marine animals extends further than most people realize. Leatherback sea turtles feed almost exclusively on jellyfish and may consume hundreds of pounds per day during feeding seasons. Tuna, swordfish, and various billfish species have been documented consuming jellyfish in large quantities during bloom periods. In some ecosystems, jellyfish may represent a valuable food source during seasons when more preferred prey, small fish and crustaceans, is scarce. In a changing ocean, where many traditional prey species face pressure from warming and fishing, jellyfish may become increasingly important to the diets of animals that currently prefer other foods. Their abundance, once viewed as a nuisance, may come to represent a form of ecological stability. There are few things in nature that look less like a biological discovery than Turritopsis dohrnii. It is small, it is pale, it has no face, no voice, no behavior that reads as compelling to the human eye. It pulses, it drifts, it sinks to the sea floor when stressed, and then, quietly, it reorganizes itself from the inside and begins again. There is no announcement, no visible effort. The most biologically significant thing any multicellular animal has ever been shown to do happens in near total silence. In water most people will never swim in, performed by a creature that most people would brush from their arm and forget. The universe, as usual, keeps its most interesting secrets in the smallest and quietest places. The study of Turritopsis dohrnii connects to one of the deepest questions in biology. Is aging inevitable? Or is it a feature of certain lineages that could theoretically be bypassed? For most of the 20th century, the dominant view was that aging was an inescapable consequence of the accumulation of damage over time. More recent frameworks view aging as a regulated program, a biological process controlled by specific genes and molecular pathways that could, in principle, be modulated. The existence of Turritopsis dohrnii does not prove that aging is fully reversible in complex animals, but it proves, carefully and repeatedly, that a multicellular animal can reset the program. It is evidence that the program exists, that it can be run in reverse, and that biology has already found a way to do it. You might be feeling tired now. That's exactly right. Breathe slowly and think about cycles. Jellyfish live in cycles. Polyp and medusa. Expansion and contraction. Life and reset and life again. They have been cycling through these stages since before the first tree grew on land, before the first bird called in a morning sky, before almost everything we know about the living world. The ocean itself is a cycle. Tides rising and falling. Currents circling the globe over centuries. Water evaporating and returning as rain. Nothing stops. Nothing is wasted. Everything that ends becomes the beginning of something else. The jellyfish we have been learning about, each one follows its own rhythm, pulsing through warm water, folding inward when the time comes, beginning again in silence. Every rhythm perfectly suited to its creature. You are also part of these rhythms. Your breath, your waking and sleeping, the rhythm of the day moving through your body even when you are still. You don't need to fight the tide, just let it carry you. Like jellyfish settling gently through dark water, bell slowly folding, sinking toward the floor, quiet. You can settle too. We're almost there now, almost home. The ocean has kept jellyfish for 550 million years, through ice ages and warming periods, through extinctions that emptied the seas of everything else we know about. The pulsing bell continued. Whatever the ocean has become, jellyfish have found a way to belong to it. There is something deeply steadying about that. A form so well fitted to its world that the world has never yet found a reason to let it go. Turritopsis dohrnii does not know it holds the most interesting cellular secret in the animal kingdom. It does not experience its reversals as survival or renewal. It simply responds to stress with the only biological pathway available to it: a return to the beginning. There is no intention in this. The most notable thing a living creature has ever been shown to do is also, apparently, entirely ordinary to the one doing it. Jellyfish have no heart, and yet they are everywhere. They fill the ocean from pole to equator, from sunlit surface to lightless deep. They bloom in numbers that can be counted in billions. They pulse through water that humans have never touched and will never touch. The heart, it turns out, is not the only engine of persistence. The transparency of jellyfish means that to look at one in clear water is to see not quite an animal but a living window. A small, moving piece of ocean that happens to also be alive. Inside the window, a stomach, a nervous web, eggs, sometimes glowing faintly. Life made visible, barely, as if it barely bothers to distinguish itself from the water that holds it. A bloom of jellyfish can number in the hundreds of millions. It can extend for miles across the surface of the sea. When seen from above, it looks like the ocean is breathing. Slow, vast, pulsing. Each individual animal is tiny. Together they become something that fills the horizon. In the ocean, the individual and the collective are always asking the same question of each other. Where does one end and the other begin? The research into jellyfish aging has given longevity scientists a new language for what they are working toward. Not just slowing the rate of damage accumulation, not just extending years of declining function, but genuine biological rejuvenation, the resetting of cellular age rather than its management. The jellyfish did not slow aging. It reversed it. That distinction, quiet as it sounds, represents a meaningful shift in what the science allows itself to aim for. In Japan, the immortal jellyfish carries a kind of cultural weight beyond science. Shin Kubota, its most dedicated researcher, has described it as a source of hope, not because it promises human immortality, but because it demonstrates that biology contains possibilities we have not yet imagined. In a culture that has long meditated on the relationship between impermanence and continuity, a creature that chooses renewal over ending carries a quiet resonance. Jellyfish have been pulsing through the ocean since before there were eyes to see them. The first fish, the first animals with eyes sophisticated enough to perceive the pale ghost of a jellyfish bell in the water, did not evolve until perhaps 500 million years ago. For tens of millions of years before that, jellyfish pulsed in darkness, unseen, unwitnessed, entirely alone in an ocean that did not yet know how to look. The biological capacity of Turritopsis dohrnii, if it holds without limit, would make it not the oldest individual alive, but something quieter. A lineage with no internal expiration date. Not one animal that has lived forever. Each reversal produces a biologically young organism, but a story that, left undisturbed, might have no last chapter. That is a different kind of continuation. Patient, unhurried, more like the ocean itself. Moon jellyfish, caught in tide pools on warm summer evenings, have been familiar to coastal children for as long as human beings have lived near the sea. Gentle, translucent, almost touchable. Most people do not know, when they look into that quiet pool at the pulsing bell, that they are looking at one of the oldest and most resilient animal forms in the history of life on Earth. Wonder is sometimes hiding in the most familiar places. Longevity science has long asked whether aging might one day be treated not as an inevitability to be endured, but as a biological condition that could be addressed. The jellyfish did not answer that question for humans, but it answered it for itself. Quietly, reliably. In water no human will ever find it in. It is the only proof nature has offered so far that the program can run in reverse. That is a narrow proof, and it is a real one. To watch a jellyfish pulse through clear water tends to produce a calming effect in human observers. Researchers studying responses to nature imagery have found that ocean footage, and aquarium footage in particular, reduces heart rate and blood pressure in viewers. There is something in the slow, rhythmic movement of a jellyfish bell that the human nervous system receives as non-threatening and restful. Something 500 million years old, pulsing through water, finding its way, quietly, into a modern human's sleepless night. The ocean's capacity to produce biological novelty has not been exhausted. Researchers estimate that perhaps 80% of ocean life remains undescribed by science. In that uncharted volume of water, unknown species pulse through darkness, live and die in patterns that may contain answers to questions we have not yet thought to ask. The immortal jellyfish was discovered in 1988. Before that, it was simply one of the ocean's private facts. The ocean has kept its own counsel for a very long time. Everything alive today is connected to everything else that has ever been alive on Earth through an unbroken chain of reproduction, stretching back more than 3.5 billion years. You carry in your cells the chemical signatures of the earliest life on this planet. So does the jellyfish. The same ancient molecular machinery, the same DNA polymerases, the same basic metabolic chemistry runs in both of you. The gulf between a human being and a jellyfish is enormous. The connection between them is also real. Some of the most significant things in biology happen very slowly. Speciation unfolds over thousands of generations. The evolution of a new cellular capability accumulates over millions of years of incremental change. We study these processes in moments. A paper, a year, a career. But the processes themselves unfold in time so vast it is almost impossible to hold in the mind. The jellyfish has been patient with its biology for longer than we can meaningfully imagine. In sleep, the human brain clears metabolic waste accumulated during waking hours. In some sense, sleep is the body's own return to baseline, a regular restoration before the new day begins. The function of rest is renewal. The function of the jellyfish's reversal is renewal. Both are biological programs that run when the organism needs restoration. Both produce an organism that functions more cleanly on the other side. Rest is, perhaps, the version of Turritopsis dohrnii's gift available to everyone. The ocean is very dark and very quiet and very full. Beneath the surface noise of waves, beneath the activity of shallow coastal waters, the deep ocean is almost perfectly still. In that stillness, jellyfish pulse. They have been doing it since before there was anything else alive complex enough to notice. The deep ocean's quiet is not emptiness. It is age. It is 550 million years of patient, pulsing life, continuing. If you were to hold a Turritopsis dohrnii in your palm, which would be possible, just barely, given its size, it would be almost invisible against your skin. A faint, translucent pink, a bright red cross of stomach at the center. It would pulse, very slightly, against the warmth of your hand, something no bigger than a baby's fingernail, carrying the most interesting cellular secret in the animal kingdom, resting for a moment in a human hand before being returned to the sea. The answer to the question this video began with, why does the jellyfish never die, is not a simple one. It does not never die. In the wild, most individuals succumb to predation or damage before any reversal becomes necessary. But one small species has shown, clearly and repeatedly, that age-related death is not a biological inevitability for all animals, that cells can change identity in an organized way, that life cycles can be run in reverse, that somewhere in the ocean, at this moment, something is beginning again. The jellyfish does not know it is asking a question, but it is. Every time it folds inward, reabsorbs its tentacles, and begins the slow, organized transformation back toward its earliest form. It is posing a question to every other living system on Earth, not in words. In chemistry, in the quiet language of cells changing their identity, the question is, what if beginning again were always an option? Science is still, carefully, working out what to do with an answer like that. 550 million years of ocean, 5 mass extinctions, asteroid impacts, and ice ages and warming seas. And through all of it, The bell. Opening. Closing. Opening. Closing. The jellyfish did not endure all of this by being strong. It endured by being simple, flexible, and willing to release. The most durable things in the living world have tended to be the ones that hold their form lightly. The quietest fact about Turritopsis dohrnii may be this: it will never know what it means. The animal that has prompted more reflection on mortality and continuity than perhaps any other in recent biology does not experience mortality. It does not anticipate endings. It does not grieve the forms it releases. It simply pulses and drifts. And when the time comes, it lets go. All the meaning is ours. The jellyfish asks nothing of us. We bring the wonder ourselves. The Mediterranean Sea, where Christian Sommer first noticed something unusual, is one of the most studied bodies of water on Earth. Ancient, enclosed, bordered by cultures that gave rise to so much of what we carry forward as civilization. In those waters, for thousands of years, human beings sailed and fished and wondered about the world. And below them, throughout all of that human history, a small translucent creature was pulsing quietly through the water, already doing something that would take us until 1988 to notice. The question at the heart of aging research: can the biological clock be reversed? Now has at least one clear answer from the natural world, in at least one species, in at least certain conditions, in a body far simpler than our own. Yes, that answer does not solve aging for human beings, but it changes the problem. A thing never done remains theoretical. A thing being done now, in the Mediterranean Sea, in a creature the size of a pea, is merely difficult. Somewhere tonight, in water warm and clear and shallow, a Turritopsis dohrnii is beginning its reversal, folding inward, sinking toward the floor, reorganizing from the inside out in silence. It is not aware of the research that followed it. It simply pulses, releases, and begins again, the way it always has, in the ancient dark of the only home it has ever needed. And so, our quiet journey through the life of the jellyfish comes to a gentle close. We've traveled from the ancient ocean floors where the first complex animals pulsed through Cambrian water, to the laboratory in Rapallo, where a student noticed something that would change how science thinks about aging itself. From the tiny, almost invisible bell of Turritopsis dohrnii, folding inward and beginning again, to the vast, slow presence of moon jellyfish moving through coastlines that humans have always loved. We've glimpsed how simplicity can contain the most unexpected things. We've met an animal with no brain, no heart, no bones, and found in it one of the deepest questions life has ever posed. We've met the question of whether anything can truly escape time, and we found it alive, pulsing, in the sea. Jellyfish remind us that the most durable things in the living world are not always the strongest. Much of what matters in biology happens below the surface, in the quiet reorganization of cells, in the patient expression of genes, in the slow unfolding of processes older than almost everything we know. They remind us that complexity is not the only path to resilience. Without them, the ocean would lose one of its most ancient and patient voices. By pausing to notice their lives, these strange, boneless, brainless, pulsing creatures, we remember that wonder is available in the smallest things, and that the oldest questions are sometimes answered in the places we least expect to look. In these final moments, take the deepest breath you can. Think about connection. Every animal, past, present, extinct, mythical, real, connected through the web of life on Earth. You are not separate. You are one thread in a tapestry older than memory. The jellyfish we explored tonight, each one a quiet expression of 550 million years of patience. They drift through a world that is also your world. You share this ocean, this atmosphere, this ancient water cycle, with creatures that have been pulsing through the dark long before your kind ever stood on a beach and looked out at the waves and wondered what was out there. Let your entire being settle into this community of creatures, into the knowledge that you belong to something larger than yourself, into the peace of kinship with all living things, including the small, pale, pulsing thing in the Mediterranean that began again today. Prepare for deep sleep. No boundaries left between you and rest. Only peace. Only breath. Only the soft darkness welcoming you home. If this quiet journey through the ocean and the mystery of life helped you relax or feel connected to something larger tonight, consider sharing it with someone else who loves nature and science. A soft like, subscribe, or gentle share helps other curious minds find their way here. It might be exactly what their restless thoughts need to finally let go. One quiet moment, one sleepy soul, one pulsing bell at a time. But there's no need to do anything now. Nothing at all. You've traveled far tonight through the ocean, through deep time, through the quiet question of whether life can ever truly run out of beginnings. You can allow these thoughts of jellyfish to fade now, like something translucent dissolving slowly into the water around it, leaving only the warmth and the quiet behind. Let your breathing deepen. Let your body feel heavier, like sinking slowly through warm water, weightless and held. Nothing required of you. Everything provided. If sleep comes, let it carry you the way ocean currents carry sleeping things. Smoothly, inevitably, into the realm where consciousness dims and the dreaming begins its own slow, patient work. If your eyes are still open, another journey waits for you, ready to continue. But if they're closed, stay there. Stay in the soft dark where jellyfish pulse through water you will never touch, where the most ancient animals on Earth continue their quiet, patient lives in the only way they have ever known how. Tomorrow, in the Mediterranean Sea, a small translucent creature will pulse through warm water. The ocean will continue its cycles. The question of what life can do will remain open and full of things we haven't found yet. But tonight belongs to rest. Sleep well, gentle soul, and remember, the oldest, most patient thing in the ocean has been beginning again since before there were eyes to see it. And so can you. Relax, listen, and drift with the animal kingdom. Good night.